Here we're going to take a look at your Accounting 102 project and looking at some of the details. You have in shared files a Premium Pooch Palaces Word document that goes through description of what the company does, what types of forms you're going to need, what page you need to start the general journal on, etc. The second page shows you the chart of accounts, and you're going to need to set up a ledger for every single one of these accounts. It also gives you the balance as of the end of May, which would also be the beginning of June. And so your first thing you're going to have to do is set up those journals and ledgers, and you can do that on accounting paper or you can do it on electronic paper. On your shared files, you have this right here, journals and ledgers. It's got a journal page, and if you want more than one, you can just copy and paste and get more journal pages. And here's some ledgers, and they have some names on them, but you can easily change this name, say, to work in process, or whatever name you need to. Notice there are no account numbers, so you will have to go ahead and put in the account number for each account. If you need, say, like this accounts receivable or this work in process, say, only has 2 lines to it, and you're going to need more than that, you can click your cursor to right outside, right to the right of the last line, and then press enter, and that will give you another line. So you can keep doing that and making as many lines as what you need for each ledger. This is your general ledger, of course. Now, I can put in the date, and this is June. You can use J-UN, or you can use 6, which is June is the 6th month. And then the date, you can put in the 1st. Now typically, of course, in the general ledger, you do not have an item. You don't have anything listed under item, but you can put something like beginning balance for the beginning balance. Adjusting entry or closing entry, etc. Can go in the item column. Okay, now there's no post reference because you're not actually posting this from a journal entry. These are just the beginning balances from the end of last period. And so you can just put in a couple dashes or something in the post reference column. Don't put anything in debit or credit because, once again, we're not posting from a general journal here. We're just putting in the balance. Now the balance for the cash account, back on that chart of accounts, was $50,000. Now, whenever you're putting numbers into ledgers or journals, you need to put the pennies in. So I need to put a .00 here, or you can put dashes for the pennies, but stay consistent whatever you're going to do. Okay? So here I've got the $50,000 debit balance. I set up the cash account with the account number and the name and have $50,000 debit balance set up in it. You would need to do the rest of these just like that. Now when you get down to some of these, here's payroll taxes payable account 245, and there's no number there. That means that the balance is 0. You still need to set up a ledger for these. There's just no beginning balance in it for you to have to put in. If you scroll on down, this next page in your narrative are the transactions from the first 3 weeks of June. and they've already given you the transaction. The description is the accounts you're going to use and whether to debit or credit them. And you also have the explanation over to the right for each one of these transactions. You're going to use June 28th for the date for all these transactions. And when you go to do a transaction for the last week of June, if there's materials returned to the storeroom, say, you can come back to these and see what happened. Oh, we debit materials, we credit work in process, we credit overhead for the indirect materials that are returned to the storeroom. Work in process for the direct materials that are returned to the storeroom. So you can see exactly what to debit and what to credit by looking at these June 25th ones. But as far as what you need to do right now is to just go ahead and journalize them just the way they are here. And so this first one is a debit to cash and a credit to accounts receivable for $89,100. So I would go back to my journal and ledger page, and here's my general journal. Now you'll need to look in the narrative to see what page you should start. I'm just going to leave this on page 1, but you need to have the correct page there. Okay, the date is June, and I can tab over, and that is, we're going to put all of these as being the 25th, and tab over. Now sometimes on this journal page, when you tab over to the description column, you will see that your marker's in the middle of it because it is on the center justify. So you need to then click over here up at your toolbar to get it to left justify. All right, so here we need to debit cash. I'm not posting it yet, so I leave the post reference blank. And I tab over to the debit column, and that was 89,100.00. Okay. In my second line, I have to indent for my credit account, which is accounts receivable. Okay. And that's a credit, 89,100.00. And then here on my third line, I'm in a center justify. Now your explanation can start to the right of the credit account, the accounts receivable, as long as it doesn't start right under the A of accounts receivable. They can start more to the right, the way it is right now, or it can start way to the left. I like mine to start way to the left, so I'm going to left justify here and put in cash received on account. Okay, that's my explanation. Now, when you get into the last week of June, you'll have more specific stuff to put in these explanations. But for right now, for these June 25th one, just put whatever explanation you were given on the sheet, on the narrative. Now I would have to post these to the general ledger, and you would go down to your cash. Your date is the 25th. Now here there wasn't enough space for 2 numbers to go here. So I can put my arrow and move, oops, no. There we go. Move that over just a little bit, and then I'll have enough space for the 25 to fit in there. Okay, I'm not going to have anything in this item column. I have a debit of 89,100.00. Now I have to go to my balance column and say, what is the running total balance? Now we go to our old rule of thumb that we learned from back in Accounting 101. Debit and debit is add, credit and credit is add, debit and credit is subtract. So here we have debit and debit. We have a debit balance of 50,000 and a debit that we're putting in of 89,100. So we're going to add. So that's 139,100. Then I say, where did this information come from? The post reference column. That was General Journal. Now again, I didn't change mine from page 1, so I'm going to put GJ1, but you would put the correct GJ page. Finally, you have to go back up here, post reference, and put your 101 in there to show that you did post it to Accounting 101. And then, of course, you would go on and post the accounts receivable, and you could go on to the next transaction. You can likewise put in all of your June 25th transactions into your General Journal, and then post them all at the same time if that's what you wanted to do, as opposed to one transaction at a time.